Are you practicing kindness every day? Even when that person cuts you off in traffic? All right, let's welcome up our reader, the beautiful Miss Dawn. Come on down.
Good morning, everybody. This is from Science of the Mind, November 11th of 2025, and the title is Remember the Rhythm. You are made of rhythm too. The same rhythm that flows through nature flows through you. Anna H. Peterson. There is one life. I am one with its rhythm. My heart beats with the pulsion of the universe in serenity, in peace, and in joy. Ernest Holmes, Science of Mind, page 246. The word rhythm derives from the Greek rheumathis. We all decided that's how it's pronounced, which means the flow. Underneath external noise, a rhythm pulses, a steady, ancient hum like the earth beating beneath our feet. It is not dramatic or loud. It is subtle and sacred. Like Native American elders who have lived in the rhythm of nature's changing cycles, we are invited to adhere to their proverb of rhythm. Listen to the wind, it talks. Listen to the silence, it speaks. Listen to the heart, it knows. Everything around us is pulsing with an innate reminder of symmetry. You are not a stranger to the flow. You are already home. We do not lose the rhythm. We simply tune it out. As spiritual beings caught in cycles changing of human doing, we spend years gathering names, roles, goals, building structures of meaning, trying to be enough. And all the while, the innate pulse of life's forgiveness flows beneath every achievement, every heartbreak, every attempt to get it right. The rhythm does not rush, it does not shame, it invites. It reminds us that we are not outside of peace-seeking entrance. We are within peace, watching everything move and shift like clouds across the sky. No arrival, no unfolding. We breathe, and in doing so, the rhythm breathes us. The search dissolves, and in its place, something vast and familiar pulses its steady proverb. You never left the flow. You are never alone. Listen to your heart, it knows. And the affirmation is, listen to your heart, it knows.
All right, I'm going to invite you to go within. Just make yourself comfortable in the chair. Take a couple deep breaths and let it out. And as we allow this day to come forward, we ourselves go forward with a knowing that we are the unique, individualized expression of God. That each of us bring certain qualities to this life. And within those qualities, we have the ability to create heaven on earth, right here, right now. We allow ourselves to open up to the flow of spirit. We allow gratitude for the abundance of blessings that move in and through our lives. From the very small, minute things to the large things that we sometimes don't pay attention to, such as the universe working in perfect motion, planets spinning as needed to keep gravity, oxygen, everything it takes to allow us to take a breath, to become the best we can become. So in this moment, allow yourself to kind of make a list of everything you have to be thankful for. Friends, family, a vehicle with air conditioning, this center, Reverend Sue's message, the ability to put food on your table, to break bread with others, to celebrate the ups and help each other with the lower points, to be able to come forward and shine a light so bright that it not only your path illuminates, but those paths next to you illuminate. we do this, we allow ourselves to shine. When we allow ourselves to shine, we give others the permission to do the same. So as you go forward today, look for the good. Listen for the good. Celebrate everything there is to celebrate. And help where help is needed. This is how we create heaven on earth. We release this truth into action by simply saying together, and so it is. It is always my privilege to welcome up our one and only senior minister, Reverend Sue Witters.
Oh my goodness. The microphone always works better when you turn it on. So good morning, everyone. The day here kind of reflects my morning thus far. In my house today, and now I live with my husband and a dog. The dog is new. He's frightened of everything. So we're here, 2 grandchildren, their partners, 2 adult grandchildren, their partners, a 5-year-old and a 9-year-old in our house. And the dog is terrified of all of them and is constantly barking and carrying on around all of them. So to come and say, the sound's not working completely right, I will take responsibility. My chaotic energy is probably not necessarily the cause, but certainly tied to the fun of it all. So anyway, so welcome. Thank you so much for being here. And we're working on trying to get everything back up online, but at least it's broadcasting out online. We've been able to see that. We have a camera. So what we're really missing is music. So thank you, Bill, for doing what Bill always does, figure stuff out on the fly. What were the dancers from the 80s called? The Fly Girls? Without the dancing, Bill's the fly guy. He can do anything. One day, Reverend Karen, the senior minister in Peoria, said that she had been watching, and she was just amazed because Bill stopped, something happened and stopped in the middle. He just jumped in and went on, and he's amazing. So thank you, Bill. You are a lifesaver at so many levels. Oh, was it Les? Did you make the music? Well done. We're there. There's Les. Anyway, so we will roll. I've laughed and said the ringtone on my phone is Stevie Winwood's "Roll with It." Just roll with it, baby. And life works so much easier when you do. So the title of my talk today is Building Our Foundation. And it's kind of tied to last week's talk in that we were talking about having the being endowed by our Creator with unalienable rights of the pursuit of life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness, and the power of our word, and the power of declarations, and the power of claiming your decisions. And today we're going to then talk about the fact that there's a foundation that we all have. In Christianity they talk about that being built on the rock. But we have a good, solid foundation in our life most of the time. Even if it feels sometimes like it's quicksand, we all have a foundation. And what we do with that foundation and how we manage it or take care of it really makes a difference. So I was listening to an interview with an author who had written a book about slavery. And they were talking about the fact that the analogy the author said was, it's like the foundation of a house. If you knock the house down completely, you still have the outline, the footprint that's present in the foundation. You can build on that same foundation again, and you can, maybe it was a 3-bedroom house before and you've made it 2 stories and 5 bedrooms. You can do a lot with it. But if you don't look at your foundation, then you only have just that space to build your life. And sometimes the foundation can have cracks and There's a spot in my house in Sun City where, I don't want to ever have to, maybe I'll just live there till I pass away, and whoever gets my estate will have to figure this out. You can tell that the foundation has been cracked because it literally cracked the tile. And one little, right near the outside of the house. And I just look at it and go, la, la, la. If I don't see it, it's just tucked in this one corner. If I don't look at it, I'm just going to not deal with it. But a part of what happens when we look at our foundation in that respect, if we don't stop and look and say, what do I have that I'm working with? What is the foundation made of? Is it good? Is it solid? Is it flat? What can I do with that? And the same is true with our physical, mental, emotional, and spiritual foundations. That it's up to us, through our choices, through our decisions, through our declarations, to say, this is what I'm going to do. And the tools that we talk about here a lot have to do with the tools that allow us to figure out how to look at the foundation of our belief system. Because it's that foundation of our belief system that really determines what we build. And so the tools that we talk about here are things like knowing, first of all, what's important. What do you value? Where do your priorities lie? And do you have a set of priorities that you think you have that are different from how you live? And what can you do to bring those into alignment? And when it comes to the foundation, that allows us to look and see its overall shape and size and health. But it also allows us to say, do you know what? I'm going to build a whole new section. The foundation can be expanded. A lot easier than you could expand a building's foundation, but it still can be expanded. And that's a large part of what we teach. And when we talk about we have choice in our life and we have control and we make decisions, it has to do with how much effort am I willing to put in to make sure that I'm standing on strong, solid ground. And Bill, again, was gracious enough to come and look at something at my house yesterday before the onslaught of additional beings arrived. And he was talking with my husband about struggling with letting go of some old ideas and some old beliefs and the meditations that he was doing to try to help that. And Bill, you're going to have to correct me here if I get this not completely right. But he was talking about what I do is I take all of the experiences that have happened to us in our life, they're a part of what make us who we are. I used to joke around and say, the only thing I really regret in my past, because I understand that everything in my past makes me who I am today. It gives me all of my experiences help create me. And I used to say, the only thing I really regret is I passed out in the middle of the Joni Mitchell concert. Which tells you a lot about my history. But the truth is that I probably never would have gotten sober had I not been just floored. It was one of those outdoor arenas, where you have picnics and you lay on blankets and but that made a difference. It was one thing that stood out profoundly in my life. And so you take all those experiences that make you who you are, and you learn to put them in a different perspective. And he said something basically to the effect of, I just grind it all up and build it down into my foundation. Close? And that's how, for me, I can repair a crack, or I can go in and put on a new piece of a foundation for me to help me build something differently. Is to be able to look at things and to stay as much as we can without judgment. That's the hardest part. The definition of mindfulness is being able to be fully in the present, and here's the kicker, without judgment. Without judgment. And it's difficult because our minds are hardwired to judge. They're hardwired to say, this is good and this is bad and this is right and this is wrong. It should or shouldn't be certain ways. But that's our biology. And we can rise above that as well. So for me, one of my favorite spiritual practices is when my mind begins to run and carry on, to be able to just say, That's my mind doing literally what it's hardwired and programmed to do. It's hardwired and programmed to look for things that are wrong, to look for places where there could be problems. It's hardwired to make up stories, to have it all make sense. And so, Tony, I'm freezing people out here. I was just dripping with sweat when I got here, so we turned the air way down. So we have the ability to look at our life and say, how can I see this differently? How can I do this differently? How can I make a new choice? And the fact that we have the ability to make new choices is probably the biggest freedom that this philosophy offers us. That in this moment in time, this is what is. It's not to say that we don't acknowledge what is. What is, however, Carolyn Mace was talking about there are something that's a truth, that's true. It's true that I have a house full of people here and a dog that's going crazy. That's just a true condition of my life. But it is not the truth. There's the little t, and if you read Ernest Holmes' writings, he loves to have capital letters and big and small letters at the beginning of some words, and truth is one of them. And for him, when you read his work and there's a capital T, what he's talking about are those spiritual truths, those principles, those unshakable, unchangeable things, whether they're scientific or things related to the conditions like gravity. You know, we all be really grateful for gravity, and we aren't really aware of gravity until we've dropped something and grumble because it's now on the floor. But it's what keeps us here. You know, but it is not visible. It is not. It's not in our conscious everyday awareness. We don't walk around going, I'm standing up straight and walking around on the planet because of gravity. The Earth is spinning in its proper orbit. And, you know, it's like we don't think those things. But they exist. And so a part of what spiritual practice for me does is it allows us to, if we practice them enough, consistently enough, and build them into our life, they can become like gravity, where they're operating and we don't have to necessarily be conscious of it. And that's what's in our foundation. The foundation that we have are those things which we don't even necessarily think about, but they're still there. And so it's that spirituality is always about paradox. So with spiritual paradox, it's with any paradox, two seemingly opposite things can both coexist and be true at the same time. Doesn't make sense, but they're both operating effectively, efficiently, and accurately in their own way. So it's about saying, what do I need to subtract from my life? What do I need to let go of? What do I need to release? And what do I need to add? And wherever in this process of subtraction and addition, to be able to create and maintain that foundation. And the more we're conscious, awake, and aware of things, even if it's, like, I don't know that even when I drop something and drop it to the floor, I don't go, oh, that's gravity, right? It just, it's inherent sort of in who and what we are. But there are times when I can bring that up to a conscious level. And that's how operating with our foundation works for me. There are some things that I don't have to think about, that they just keep rolling. And there are times when I stop and think about them and rise and bring them up in my consciousness. It allows me to see things differently, to make cleaner choices, newer choices, and to see that the world and what I think are limitations aren't necessarily. So Ernest Holmes says in A New Design for Living, the limitations we find encircling us have but one source. They spring from our thought. They are the result of our negative habitual patterns, conscious or tucked away in the subconscious, which may have been instigated by our past experiences or the blind acceptance of what now appears to be wrong ideas and the concepts of others. So blind acceptance. That's the paradox. Again, there are things that it is easier if I just have blind acceptance of gravity. But if I'm trying to build something, it's probably pretty helpful to know that to bring gravity into your conscious level to make sure that everything's going to stay up and moving. So it's about changing our approach. It's about changing our thinking, what this whole philosophy is built on. And I talk a lot about the difference between linear change and transformational change. Linear change is that which we can measure, we can understand. We like linear change, right? Because we feel like we're in control of it. It's working in the realm of what we know, and you can have measurable improvement. And I'm not suggesting that we don't pay attention to those things. But it's, Thomas Paine says, we can only reason from what is. We can reason on actualities, but not on possibilities. And Thomas Paine wrote Common Sense, and something that's missing, I think, in a lot of our lives nowadays, because we're so used to seeing things in a certain way. But his papers influenced the American Revolution. He also wrote one called Crisis. But so he was talking about we can only reason from what is. We can reason on actualities, but not on possibilities. And one of the favorite things for me in this philosophy is the notion that we really live in a field of infinite possibilities. Absolutely infinite possibilities. And the only thing that manages our acceptance of them and inclusion of them in our life is our belief in the extent to which a limited possibility exists, or being able to be open to the infinite possibility. So in linear change, which is subtraction, usually, we think about things as right or wrong, and everything has meaning. We play it safe, we try to control it. If you're like me, control is one of my favorite pastimes. And it shows when I get crazy. We care how it looks. We like the known, the familiar, the comfortable. We're really focused on not failing. We're really looking at outcomes constantly, and we want to hide flaws. This is where shame can come into play, because we're so focused on how it should or shouldn't be. And a lot of us struggle with the notion of we think we need to do it alone. And that's the way most people live, is in that process of just trying to keep ahead of the game. When looking at expanding our consciousness and changing how our foundation is operating, infinite possibilities are transformational, and it's expansive. And so it's saying, can I not be attached to a process? Can I open my thought to say, if I need to get from here to there, is there more than one way I can do it? And there is. If I want to go, I took the kids to the beach last night, down at Rotary Park, and I was trying to tell Dylan how to get there in the morning, and because they'll be off on their way to the beach before I get home probably. And it's like, well, you go down Palo Verde South. You can, it's like, do I tell them to go down to 95? Do I tell them to go on Lake Cavs? It's like, so we're going along. But there's a lot of ways. From here to Rotary Park, it's amazing how many different streets you could go on to get from Palo Verde South to Rotary Park. I just laughed because I went, well, no, it could be. And then I just went, put it in your GPS. Just put it in your GPS, Rotary Park, Lake Havasu, and it'll get you there from here. But it's about saying there's more than one way to be in this life. There's more than one way to operate. There's more than one way to see things. There's more than one way to believe things. And that seeing that infinite possibility and not attaching to the limitations is how you can play life in a totally different way. And to be transparent enough and vulnerable enough and open enough to say, I don't necessarily have to know it all. Another thing that's very hard for me. I think it's hard for most of us, right? We want to be able to be comfortable in control. Our mind is hardwired to want to have that comfort of control. But one of the things that's amazing to have is a supportive community. And if you look around this room, even if we don't know everyone in this room, and we may not all be completely in alignment with how we think or what we believe, but we have all come to this place. So there is inherent in us some understanding of it, or a desire to shift how we look at life, to shift how we are in life. And having community and having support makes a massive difference. For one, we start with, I'm not alone in this, but it's also a place that we can turn. So it's realizing that it's just pure creativity that we have at our access. It is our decision and our choice. So Charles Dubois says the most important thing is this: to be able at any moment to be able at any moment to sacrifice what we are for what we could become. And Ralph Waldo Emerson says, what lies behind us and what lies before us are small matters compared to what lies within us. What lies within us. So, how do we get there? What do we do? It's all a lovely concept. There's nothing I ever talk about, there's nothing any speaker here ever talks about that we all don't at some level already know. Because we've either been studying this a lot, or there's just things that are inherent in some measure of our human understanding. So from my perspective, how do I get there from here has to do with the pursuit of happiness. So for a long time, we're having a women's retreat down in Phoenix at the end of the month, and it's the theme is the girls just want to have fun. It's about learning how to play. And when that theme came up, I just burst out laughing, and I said, you all know that that was a period of a year and a half, 2 years, where I was such a compulsive worker that when my counselor said, you need to lighten up and learn to have fun. And I went, well, this is fun. And he went, no, that's task-oriented. Well, getting tasks done is fun. And he went, not quite what I'm talking about. And so it's about learning to have more joy, more passion, and to look at really what makes us happy. Because I really had to stop and look and say, what does bring me joy? Not what brings me a sense of accomplishment, not what brings me a sense of thinking this is what I need to do to be okay, not thinking about anything other than what makes my heart sing, what allows my soul to go, and then to go, yay. You know, what do we have? Because it's so easy to get caught up in the busyness of life that we don't stop and take the time and say, what do I need to do to be in pursuit of joy and passion and happiness? So a man named Ferdinand Foch says, the most powerful weapon on earth is the human soul on fire. Man is so made that when anything fires his soul, impossibilities vanish. And so for me, being able to stop and look at that makes a huge difference. So Ernest Holmes, in one of his early writings, it's actually the textbook before it became the textbook and got edited. He says, I noticed this, that it is not the sentimental ones who gush and gush. This cracks me up. Ernest Holmes, you can tell this was in his early writing because he just didn't talk like this in the end. I noticed that it is not the sentimental ones who gush and gush, that big results come. When big results comes, it is those who think deeply and simply and pertinently and persistently, and then, because they know, it happens. In what they believe, they know it will be, that they will get a perfect result. And so that's for me, how do I build that creative urge in me? How do I give it more power? Enthusiasm. He says, we really need more enthusiasm. We should not see this thing as just a law and a big, bright, brilliant goodness. We should see it as something vibrating with life, pulsating with warmth, and scintillating with color. Look at how colorful nature is. We are too prosaic and too matter of fact. Color belongs to us because God is colorful, is a colorful being. How can that which has painted nature with such lavish brush be anything but colorful? More enthusiasm. How can I put more color in my life? You know, in the movies when they have like the black and white and then all of a sudden it goes to Technicolor. The Wizard of Oz was, I think, one of the first times when everybody went ooh, ah, because it went from Dorothy in Kansas to Oz in full Technicolor. Or when you see now black and white, but somebody's lips will be bright red. Or there was a series of ads that had something to do with blue of the product in the name. And so everything would be kind of dulled out, black and white, and then bright blue in certain spots. That color brings our attention. So what brings color to your life? What brings that focus? Because the color, in that shift from Kansas to Oz, that shift to color was just changed our whole focus in that movie. Those ads or those shows where one little piece, or in a photo, where there's everything else is black and white and there's one bit of color. Our focus goes there right away. So how can we put more color in our life? Well, one of the answers that Holmes talks a lot about is persistence, determination, and commitment to your belief in infinite possibility. So for a long time in my life, persistence and determination and commitment seemed like dirty words because they just meant hard work. But what if that persistence and determination was to have more passion, to have more joy, to keep our minds open so that we can see the world differently? And Holmes says also in Love and Law, there is nothing to concentrate on. The very act of trying to concentrate will destroy the very possibility of demonstrating. But calmly and persistently, even though it be mechanically, you speak the word and there is a certain amount of power. And then gradually you will be able to feel the form of the word and it makes it become the real thing. But at first, you cannot do it any other way. Just do it mechanically. Say it over and over again, and put as much spirit into the word as you can get put into it. Convince yourself over and over again. And there's always a conversation. So we just had practitioner panels. Thank you, June, for doing that with us for the people in Peoria. And one of the things when you're preparing a student to take their tests and to have their oral panels is there are certain things you talk about, and one of them has to do with that sort of dichotomy of when you pray for someone, we teach that when you pray, it's already done. And what happens when you pray and it isn't already done? How do you resolve that? What do you do about that? And so for me, it's about, yes, there are times when my belief is so powerful and so strong that I can speak my word and it will demonstrate fast. It has to do with the extent of my belief, the degree to which my soul is on fire. And when there's struggling beliefs that Holmes talked about a lot, then it's about this mechanical process of just doing it over and over and over until it's there and you can believe it. Convince yourself over and over. And let's see, the quote later. There's a book by a woman named Tracy Goss, and she talks about taking a stand. For her, that's declarations. And she says, people often misunderstand what taking a stand means. It doesn't mean being resolute, stalwart, and grimly determined. It means committing yourself to continuously act consistent with the possibility you declare. from the moment the declaration is spoken, regardless of the circumstances. So it's that process of stating your word and knowing that consistently going back to that as already done, as being the power that is there, is what allows it to shift enough inside of you and to give the universe time to shift things to make it happen as well. Sometimes I just have to be patient with the universe, never my great gift in life either. But to know that it's a combination of my commitment and the patience to know that things unfold as they should. So Holmes says, what we should learn to do is cooperate with God's Spirit in us. The whole nature is love and harmony. Therefore, we shall get the best results when we live together in harmony and love toward each other. For out of this love and harmony should flow a greater creativity, a happy livingness, and an expectant enthusiasm. So that's really, for me, that blend of saying I'm going to have that commitment, persistent, and determination to stick with my belief in infinite possibility. And I will tell you this morning, when the dog was going crazy, I wasn't really convinced in infinite possibility at that moment. I was pretty convinced that I was just going to go back to bed and pull the covers over my head, except for the dog was barking too loud. But that's just a circumstance. That's just a true thing, a small t, as opposed to the truth that I just keep knowing that this trip is going to be a great trip for these kids and everything will work out. Dog, no dog, you know, that things unfold, and that when I tense up, I could see him tense up even more, you know. It's like, it's the more I get wound, the more the world winds. The more I relax, the more the world unwinds. Or even if the world stays wound, it's easier for me to live in it. So this week I'm going to ask you to look at the possibility of creating some changes in the foundation that you have and say, how strong is my belief in infinite possibility? Am I willing to do things to expand and strengthen? Am I willing to look and see things differently? Am I willing to say, what brings me joy? What brings me passion? What makes my heart sing? What sets my soul on fire? That's really an important thing in looking at how to expand. And then to look at, for me, I can see when I get in linear thinking and when I'm in possibility thinking. When you catch yourself being caught up in that linear change, control, management process, to stop, step back, take a breath, and say, how can I see this differently? Can I let go of my need to manage and just be in the flow? And then dream big and bold and bright and be willing to fully express your declarations. So one of my favorite movies is Pretty Woman. And I love the beginning and the end where the guy is jive talking and walking down the street and he says, "This is Hollywood. Everyone come to Hollywood with a dream. What's your dream?" And that, I think, because that was early in the movie and at the end both, that's probably more than what's in the middle is why I love it. But what's my dream? We spend so much time being caught up in the conditions. This philosophy teaches us to step back and take some time and spend it in that dream, and then make declarations about it. Confucius says, "Wheresoever you go, go with all your heart." And Walt Disney said, "When you believe in a thing, believe in it all the way, implicitly and unquestionably." And I'll end with Ernest Holmes' quote, "Expectancy speeds progress. Therefore, live in a continual state of expectancy. No matter how much good you've experienced today, expect more tomorrow. Do this, and you will give full vent to the power of constructive feeling. So thank you very much. And let's see, we're not going to have any special music. I don't think we've gotten the sound thing handled, so it will just be easier. I'm going to pray. Yep, I was just going to say there won't be any special music. We're just going to pray and say amen. So, right now, if you will just take a deep breath, and on the exhale, a couple of deep breaths with that exhale of everything, all the busyness of life, all of the stuff, all of the to-dos, just knowing that everything can unfold with beauty and perfection if I just allow it. To know what is mine to do and when to do it and how to do it if I just allow it. So right here, right now, in that space where letting go is a part of the process. I know that there is one mind, one heart, one soul, one activity of spirit, one part of the universe that is mine and mine alone. It is mine to manifest. It is mine to be. It is mine to express. But it is a part of that divine energy. That energy that is pure peace and joy, love, happiness, harmony, wisdom, clarity, kindness, compassion, health, prosperity, and so much more. That it is that infinite possibility. And that I live and move and have my being inside of that infinite possibility. And each of us lives and moves and has our being inside that infinite possibility. It is simply our job to say yes to a greater level of good, to a greater level of happiness, to a greater level of joy, to a fiery soul filled with passion. And when we say yes, to understand that that yes is inherent in who we are, life shifts and changes and moves and allows that infinite possibility to come to us in ways that we know and in ways that we don't know, in avenues that we can imagine and avenues that we can't even conceive of in this moment. That they are all a part of the possibility, and it is our job to stay open, to listen, to look for that higher consciousness, that higher way of seeing things, knowing that our internal guidance system, just like the GPS to get my grandkids to the beach at Rotary Park, that internal GPS system can adapt and shift and change, regardless of whether we take the fastest route or the slowest route, that there's always that internal part of us that is shifting and moving and changing and taking us to that bigger dream, to that higher consciousness, to that place where love abounds. So I give thanks for each and every person here today, knowing that this process is one, this teaching is one that allows us to have a completely new set of choices, a new way of seeing, a new way of being, that allows us to have that greater dream of our life. That expectancy of good, good, and more good is ours. I claim it right here and right now. So I release our time together with such gratitude, knowing that in this moment and in every moment, the universe is saying yes. So it is. All right. Thank you, everybody. You don't get out of here before 11 very often. Pretty good, huh?
All right, it is that time. Take your guess and or tithe out.
I'll do it. Are you going to do it? Okay.
Divine love through me.
Divine love through me
Blesses and multiplies.
blesses and multiplies all that I have,
All that I give.
all that I give,
And all that I receive.
and all that I receive.
So it is.
And so it is. So it is.
All right, not a lot of big announcements. We got our change jar back there. You have a little extra spare change, toss it in there. It goes for Christmas time. We got our pay it forward basket in the center room. Any non-perishables, if you have that, let's fill it up. We take it to the food bank and they get it to all that's needed. And we desperately need readers. If you think you have a 30-second to a minute 30-second read, sign up. It all works. It all fits. So be a part of the service. Even if you get nervous if you come up here in front of a lot of people, it's a good nervous. So,
And we have lots and lots of Science of Mind magazines that you could grab one and just find a day.
yep.
And I promise you it'll work with whatever the speaker has to say.
I do have a bit of news for those of you that have been around a while. Reverend Gina called and her husband Don passed away. So keep them in your thoughts and prayers as they move forward with getting all that handled and taken care of. So with that, stand, make a circle, and we're going to sing the peace song.
Yes, there is peace on earth, and yes, it begins with me. Yes, there is peace on earth, the peace that was meant to be. With God as our power, united all are we. Yes, we walk with each other in perfect harmony. Yes, peace begins with me, and this is the moment now. With every breath I take, let this be my joyous vow. To take each moment and live each moment in peace eternally. Yes, there is peace on earth, and yes, it begins with me.
Something wonderful is happening through me right now.
Something wonderful is happening through me right now.
It is happening in my mind,